not to steal a Dan Ives term. What does he always say? He's a huge bull for the tech sector. And he says, this is a party. And this party goes till 3 or 4 in the morning, and it's only 10 p.m. All right, so Dan, I'm taking your line. That's where we are in the AI party. We're just getting through the velvet ropes. So and I like to look at that as exciting, right? Because the next few years, as this just continues to accelerate at insane levels, there are ways that we're going to be able to inject AI into resilience operations and beyond, maybe where you even thought it was going to be helpful. So it's exciting. Welcome to Strive, where we explore what it means to be cyber ready, one conversation at a time. I could not be more excited about today because I get a chance to not only host a great topic, but have a fantastic guest. I'm joined by Jason Cray. He is our principal for product experience. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, if I didn't embarrass him a little, what good would an intro do? Jason has been at the forefront of data protection, resiliency, and of course now cyber resiliency for 20 years. His background goes very deep, so deep we would need the boring machine to get to it all. But he has practiced at the post level. He's run pre-sales teams. He's run a hybrid of those. And of course, Jason, we get to work together every day, so it's great to have you here. And this will be like one of our chats we're having every morning. So we're good to go.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here, Chris. I'm excited to get into it.
And I should say, I'm in the same team as Jason, the product experience team, and I focus on our cyber resiliency and AI products. And what we're going to dive in today is something I hope you're going to hear a lot more about. We'll get to all of that. But Jason took it upon himself, working with a much larger group here at Commvault, to talk about and tease out a new operational model for extended resilience. And that's what we're going to dive right into. So Jason, as we're kind of teasing this had to come about somehow, right? I know we have lots of conversations about this, but for everybody listening, why did you think we kind of needed to look at operational resiliency in a whole new way and put sort of an envelope around it? How did that come about?
So I was going to have this big, this is stormy nights. Everybody was worried, but really it was something that evolved over time. Like you said, Chris, we got many years of experience working with clients, and we've started to notice a trend amongst the clients that were responding to disruptions and threats very well. There was a clear marker of those that they still experienced everything that everybody else did, but they didn't seem to be impacted as much. So what we did was we started to look at what was the commonality amongst all of these clients that seemed to be that have that lesser impact. And we try to say, okay, what can we do to maybe bring that out so that's something that everybody can adopt?
Right. And I to that end, we're in a very lucky state that we get to see a lot of different situations, right? Back years ago, before cyber attacks became what they were and the threat vectors are as expansive as they are now, this conversation, you and I were talking about it earlier, really draws a lot of parallels to just classic data protection and failover for disaster recovery, which now, of course, we spend a lot of time saying that's basic table stakes. But maybe we go back there a little bit. What are the parallels that you actually saw to, I'd say, the early days? Take the Wayback Machine for us and how that extends and bridges to, where we are now, given just the environment we're in.
Well, you're right, Chris. I mean, when you look at it, like you said, let's go hop in our time machines when natural disasters were really all we were worrying about. Heck, even go even further, not even that. Let's just talk about what we were looking at, just hardware failures. Everybody had sort of plans, but most people had no real idea if they worked. They had this thing that they put together like, well, seems good.
Yeah.
In fact, I will never forget this night. I spent an all-nighter with a client just trying to get so that they could pass a DR test. Finally we got them through it, but it was the same old story. They had all this stuff and they never bothered testing it. It was always this idea of, well, we hope it'll work. It'll work. And it has to be better because we finally got there, and we finally got to where clients were starting to test, and they realized the value of going through and making certain they can come back. In fact, some of the advanced clients I used to work with, specifically with DR, would do things like they would operate at their secondary site for half the year and then switch and operate at their other site for half the year.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Which a lot of times I think the politics around that, of course, were we paid for it. We better not just say it's idle for 11 and a half
right.
months. But I'm with you. And it was the two things, right? It was didn't test it enough. And then I'm going to bring it up because I know it's going to be a thread that we're going to pull on here today is the communication intra-group with infrastructure, communication with the security teams, communication with other operational teams. And I mean, we could keep going, but let's just pick those core three. It's always been a challenge, right? Because this is a team sport, recovery in the disaster sense. And that looks like a walk in the park compared to the team sport that has to exist now, given the threats that we all face, correct?
Always. Yes. I mean, and that was something that even the companies that did the DR testing, let's be honest, those tests were very, very simulated and structured. They were not a true disaster. It wasn't until we started seeing the realm of cyber hit like it has that we've really seen what you just called out to be tested, where clients, it was this constant battle back and forth of, well, security's got their own bucket, infrastructure's got their own bucket, operations got their own bucket. And it was just, well, I've done mine. Let me lob the ball over to the other department. And, we cross our fingers because everybody has a plan. And back to, once again, we're hoping that it works and comes together.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And as a parenthetical pause here, for those going, if I hear this one more time in the last 10, 15 years, we wouldn't be talking about it if we still didn't see this as a key problem in having a streamlined team approach to both kind of legacy disaster recovery and now cyber resiliency in the face of the threats that we see on a day-to-day basis, right? So I'm guessing, or that is what you're saying, that's how you got to where it is, but what kind of pushed you over the edge to say, all right, it's time to actually put pen to paper, think about an architecture, think about a construct that people can use as a blueprint, right? To actually try to change some of this past.
Right. Well, really, it was just over and over again, I would get asked the same questions by clients, and we're like, well, what do we do? How do we fix this? And I mean, let's be honest, it's not a simple, let me just put in this one tool. Let me press this, let me press the easy button and everything comes back up.
Right.
It was, and I could see the pain and frustration. They realized that there was a problem, but they didn't know what to do or how to fix it. But yet, on the other hand, I saw these clients that were doing it very well. And they were just looking at okay, what do I need to look at to the future? Where the other clients that were struggling, they were just trying to get through the day, let alone think about what's coming through the future. So it was just born out of this desire to try and help those clients get over that hurdle.
Yeah, and probably a little bit for Jason's sanity as well. You probably like, look, I got to double dip on this thing. I gotta survive the day, and I want to do something for the community. So
that's questionable anyway. But that's another podcast.
There's only so much we can do, Jason. Let's be honest. I mean, come on. So, can you point out because we got lots of things we'll tease out that'll go deeper into detail, but maybe a couple of highlights of the things that you saw at the top of we shouldn't be repeating this pyramid, and then maybe transition into what good looks like. What are a couple of things, and then I know we're going to move into, what do we even mean by resilience operations, but what are a couple of those examples that you just saw over and over again?
Though there is one that sticks in my mind. I will tell this story until cyber's not a thing. Which we all know how rhetorical that statement is.
Not going to happen.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with a client, and they look at me square in the eyes, and they're like, I don't care about this because we've got so many things in place to stop the people from getting in that if they get in, we've got bigger problems. I sat there and I paused with this person. I was like, that's exactly why we're here. That's what we're talking about. But it's that idea that we can build our moat big enough and our walls high enough that we don't have to worry about it, because that's security's business.
Yep. So and this goes back to the communication piece.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hearken on a slide. Let your imagination run wild. We put up a slide a lot of times that has a huge, looks like bingo matrix. And there's a line about vertical line 3/4 of the way to the right on the chart. And there's million logos of security products to the left. And then the line represents the boom, the event, the cyber attack. And then it is so sparse to the right of the line, the tools and ideals and operational constructs that exist to handle that. And that exemplifies exactly what you just said. There's so much money, so much complexity spent to left of boom, as we call it, right? Left of the event happening, and not much money to the right. And I'm not saying the only reason is what you said, but it is a big one. It's the fallacy that, hey, we put so much money into this left of the line, we don't really need to worry about it. We'll be good.
Exactly. I mean, that is a fantastic example.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's time we got to share something you created. You had to climb. I picture you writing this like Frodo climbed the mountain. Okay, Jason. I mean, way to the top, an arduous task to pull this whole thing together. So maybe you can talk about how ResOps was born, and maybe even to that end, let's just start. What is ResOps? Because people are like, well, you rammed two words together. We think we know, but let's make sure we call it out, right?
Yep.
It's resilience operations, but maybe you talk a little bit about what you meant by that, how you architected it here as a proposal.
Absolutely. So really, resilience operation is this idea. It's organizational discipline or operational discipline that makes resilience a part of everyday functions, everyday operations within an organization. And it's an attempt to lay down this idea of, we have to know what makes up the business. So we have to know what our minimum viable business is. And we can start small. You can start with what is my absolute crown jewels? And then you move into, okay, I need to understand what it means if those are down. Some of the clients that I dealt with, they knew to the minute how much it cost them if a certain database was down. Now, I don't expect all clients to do that. That was an impressive task. But just to have some idea of what that means to them. That way we can start getting our hands around what we need to do to be resilient. And then from there, it was this idea of, all right, how do we start then communicating that with the rest of the organization? How do we bring in security? How do we bring in operations to start building in that, okay, let's test it, let's secure it, let's build in this whole thing where we have someone governing it and we can test to make certain that when we go to our board and they say, guy, like, look, we know they're going to get in. We know we're going to have something happen. I mean, let's be honest. Everybody likes to talk about cyber as the big thing, and it is. It's the biggest threat in the room right now, but we still have all the other disruptions, and we have things out there no one's ever thought of.
Yeah.
So,
well, and unfortunately only increasing because of unfortunately creative ways that AI is being used by the other side, the sort of the dark side, if you will, right?
Yep.
So while those tools are incredibly powerful in our hands, I hate to say it, we talk about it all the time on internal calls, is that those tools in the hands of bad actors are what you really need to be worried about. And I think most folks who are listening to this are probably either reading about that, seeing examples of that, or probably actually just doing their own research as to how it'll affect them. But no matter what, to your point, we are going to see more in unfortunately unique ways that this is going to happen. So you have to admit it. You have to admit it up front, and you have to build something like this around it, right?
Right. So, I mean, so you can start to get that level of, I hate to even say confidence, but that level of trust back in your business to say, all right, I know it's going to happen, but I know I've got the things in place. I've got the teams in place. I've got the structures and the communication in place that I can get the business back up and running because I know what it is. I've tested it. I've tested it in all sorts of crazy scenarios.
Right.
I went back, I fixed my plans, and I'm constantly doing this. And I've repeatedly over and over in different types of scenarios saw, okay, yep, I can do this. So that's the only thing to me when I talk to the clients, that we can start to sort of level the playing field, because just like you said, Chris, if we look at specifically cyber, I mean, AI has made us as just users ridiculously productive. I don't even want to think about in their hands what it's doing.
Right. Well, it's unbelievable. They're like, this gift we couldn't have dreamt of, right? I mean, this is unbelievable. And I don't mean to laugh about it, but it is that incredible, especially when we're working with it every day, like we are, like the folks that are watching this, that are working with it and making themselves more efficient. I think it's one of those admission phases again, just like you said, you have, the board has to be able to admit it. The senior level folks do. It has to move all the way down the pyramid. And you have to put the slippers on once in a while of the folks, of the bad actors, and think about, at least at a minimum, what do we need to be prepared for? So since you can't be prepared for everything, maybe you just want to walk through left to right, especially the sort of the validate and improve stage that you're calling out here, because that's the iteration piece. You're never going to be ready for everything, but as long as that feedback loop is built in, at least you have a model, an operational model that's taking into account changes, right? On an ongoing basis.
Yes, absolutely, Chris. So like once we've identified those crown jewels of the company, and then we start to go through our processes and validate, can we recover? That starts to open up your eyes, because one is you start to realize, okay, did I actually map everything correctly? Do I know what actually I need? Because if I have to bring it up and stuff's still not coming up, well, you probably need to make that a little bit wider.
Right. Time to loop back around. Yeah.
Yep. But then you start throwing in other things. You start thinking of, you get to have a little fun in this. At least I think it's fun anyway. I'm a little odd, but hey.
We'll tackle that in another episode, Jason. We're going to cue that one for
we
future
can move that
use.
Right with if I'm crazy or not. But that's but you start to have some fun of what kind of odd scenarios do I need to think of? Like, is my infrastructure person unavailable? What if everything I had that I thought was in place isn't available? You start running through those scenarios and figuring out how to react to them. And the way I explain it to clients is, look, I will look at you and tell you with 100% certainty, if you don't have a plan, you're going to fail. But I'm also going to tell you, I will guarantee you that plan you have isn't going to work in the scenario that you face.
Yeah.
Which always makes everybody a little crazy. Like, well, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But here's the bright side of it. By you developing that muscle memory and that understanding of how the teams work together to overcome all those random weird scenarios that you've thrown at yourself, when you run into those in the wild, it will be a much more like I've rehearsed this. I know how to handle it. I know who to talk to. I know how to find things. It won't be that, oh no moment is, oh, okay. We've experienced something like this before. This is how we handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this comes up when we talk about tabletops, and there's lots of details that can be injected along this entire continuum, right? That, that we're espousing here, and, your whole thought leadership around ResOps. And I'm going to sprinkle the first use of community in here, because there's probably a number of folks that are listening and saying, hey, all right, great. Another taxonomy, another acronym. That's what we needed. Thank God. Listening to this on a random, who knows what, Thursday afternoon. I was hoping for a new acronym. But, look, the work you've done, the work the team's done here is the genesis point. This is going to be community driven. We are asking for community involvement. Let's talk about its big brother, DevOps, right? I mean, I think the last time I looked, close to 13 years since DevOps started. I could be off by 1 or 2 years, but it's a long time. Baker's dozen, let's call it. That is a long time. I hope we can maybe move a little faster than that, but the community has been involved so significantly in that movement, and that's exactly what we're hoping for here, right? That's what you're hoping for when you created it, and that's the next phase we're moving to.
Well, as good as I would like to think that I am. But no,
he's really good, everybody. Really good.
In all seriousness, I mean, you're right. I talk to my security peers. I talk to a bunch of different people in various areas of the organization, as well as to some clients to come up with this. But it still was a very small sampling. It's the only way to make this into something that can help the widest amount of people. We need that community involvement. I mean, it's right now, it's just an idea that some guy came up with. For it to really hit home, we need that from everybody out there.
Right. Yeah. And we'll, at the end, everyone, I'm going to mention where you'll be able, because everybody's now like, get me some of this. I got an extra few spare hours a day to banter. So don't worry. We got a place for you here, and we'll hit at the end. So Jason, let's talk about where to start. So look, we don't have hours and hours here, but everybody's probably like, okay, great. I can't just snap my fingers, fix all communication, intra-department or even inter-department, or intra versus inter, right? Both are tough. Where's one place to start? How do I gather people up to at least amplify this within my organization?
So you got to start small. Like you said, Chris, I mean, it would be amazing if we could just snap our fingers. I mean, I do have a client that, now they didn't call it ResOps, but they created an entire new department within their corporation. That's like the panacea, but that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Like, start small, start trying to figure out what it is that makes up the corporation. Like, what do I need? It's not even corporation, the organization. What do I need to come back? And let's just pick a one or two services. Because that's the first thing you got to figure out. We've historically really just thought about one application or one server, but we need to look at the service that we're providing. So let's look at that,
which is amalgamation of many things when you click one layer down, let alone a couple. But that's the hard work. That is the place especially to meet any minimal viable fill in the blank, right? Whatever level you're trying to achieve for MV, there's a lot of work behind those two letters, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then I would go to the owners of that service within the organization and just start this communication there, and start brainstorming on how can we start doing these testing, and how do we start designing all the stuff around it just within that small team, and then build momentum around that.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So before we wrap up, I always like a little future action. I mean, you and I, let's be honest, if we actually knew the future, we probably wouldn't even be here. We'd just play Powerball. Preferably not when it's $400. Anyway, let's talk about one thing. If you hope the community's involved, we get vibrant movement on this. And by the way, that's positive feedback, challenging us. We want it all, right? That's how this is going to get better. Where do you think you could see this in a couple of years? I mean, clearly one criteria would be folks adopting and getting better, but what technology or human factor do you think would have the most impact a year or two down the road on ResOps?
Man, I love that question.
I don't end with the easy ones, Jason. If it was easy, I mean, I would volley over some type of, softball.
Come on. Well, so the first thing I think about is like, well, there's it's all sorts of things, but if you look at the idea of resilience operations, and we've talked a lot about IT and infrastructure here, but let's be honest, this concept can expand way beyond that. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the human factor of it, I would love to start seeing that sort of discussion is, all right, we've got a good handle on the IT side of it, but now let's start looking beyond that. Let's start looking at the personnel side of it and how we make that resilient. But then if we start looking at the tools, I hate to say it, but honestly, as much as AI is changing things, I see AI being a huge factor in this as well, because I'm already having discussions with some of my team members on how we can leverage AI to help clients with this along this journey and how we can make it easier for them.
I'm pretty excited about that as well. I mean, I know everybody's already, amazed at what we're doing, but I think people, not to steal a Dan Ives term, what does he always say? He's a huge bull for the tech sector. And he says, this is a party. And this party goes till 3 or 4 in the morning, and it's only 10 p.m. All right, so Dan, I'm taking your line. But that's where we are in the AI party. We're just getting through the velvet ropes. So I like to look at that as exciting, right? Because the next few years, as this just continues to accelerate at insane levels, there are ways that we're going to be able to inject AI into resilience operations and the comment you just made beyond maybe where you even thought it was going to be helpful. So it's exciting. I know we got a lot more. And while I know we need to wrap up, Jason, I want to thank you. Thank you for, people will never know, but just the enormous amount of thought leadership, hours, and discussions with peers in so many parts of the organization, and even testing this out outside of Commvault with a select few as you pulled this entire core together. So I want to say thank you genuinely, and I hope that you'll get lots of thanks from the community, but what we really want from the community is just involvement to make this into something, pretty great.
Yes, so. I agree. Thank you, Chris, and I couldn't say it better than what you just said.
Well, thank you again for being here. All right, listen, where do you go? Where are you going to check this out? So good news. When you're watching this, we call it the big drop. I don't know if that's what we're calling it, but that's the cool moniker I'm going to use. So Jason's detailed readiness report called ResOps Readiness Report. See, it's built into the name. An executive case for resilience operations is live. You can download it. It goes into significant detail. And since we've been talking about how you get involved from a community perspective, we have a group on LinkedIn that we want to see everybody involved in. We're going to have links in there to all of the assets, both the paper I just mentioned, of course, this podcast, and other artifacts that we have on our readyverse.com site. So lots out there, but it's just the beginning. This is something we're committed to for the long term, and we can't wait to interact with you out on LinkedIn. We have lots of other ideas how we get community involvement as well, so stay tuned. But with that, thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for the attention, and can't wait to see what you do with ResOps. Have a great day, everybody.